Hey, this is David Naughton, and you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com.
Welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I am Nasty Neil, and joining me today is Justin Price, the director of Dark Moon Rising. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thank you for coming on the show. It's great. And coming out, that's October 6th on DVD. I think you can get it at Walmart, Dark Moon Rising, and it's already on Redbox right now.
Yeah, that is correct. We had our rollout yesterday, actually, and the response has been great. We're in the top horror rentals in the Redbox, and next week is going to be very important for us as once it hits retail, it's very important that we have a great response. So October 6th in Walmart, be sure to go out and get a copy of it. We have great special features, deleted scenes, cast interviews, making of, and so it's just a lot of bonus features and information out there for the audiences to enjoy.
Yeah. Now, how important is getting your movie on like a Redbox or Netflix for like an independent director?
Well, I think what we've discovered so far, even just as consumers and people who have enjoyed entertainment as it's ingratiated itself into more of a digital phase, is that retail is kind of, for more of the upper echelon of films. So we're finding films in Redbox to include casts such as Jennifer Connelly and, Samuel L. Jackson, where the films that they're in would normally have went straight to theatrical and then maybe found their way into the Walmarts and, Blockbusters and Hollywood videos, and now find themselves coming out in the Redbox and Walmart. And I think what's important for indie filmmakers like myself is we're right next to, these great filmmakers and great authors and entertainers that we all love, and we're able to have our film release at the same day and time as a film done by a Judd Apatow or whatnot. And so it's just such a blessing for us. And I think the response and just having people go out and support it, it just helps so that as we continue to grow and bring unique content that maybe is not being produced in certain aspects and levels of, from other catalogs and studios, et cetera. So we're able to tell stories with lower risk. We don't have to fill 1,000 seats of theater, in order for it to be considered a success, And so we're able to then kind of make a movie like Dark Moon Rising, which is essentially like a live action anime film, where characters hear voices in their heads. There's, some throwbacks to the folklore. There's a lot of horror elements ingratiated and sci-fi elements and fantasy elements. And so we're able to tell that kind of story. And, so it's very important that we continue to have the support of everyone.
Yeah, I mean, you talked briefly there about the different elements of the movie, and it's not necessarily a straight-up horror movie. It's sci-fi, it's fantasy, all these things. But would you like to give like a brief idea of what the story is?
Dark Moon Rising is essentially, it's the beginning of a franchise. So we pick up the story in the middle of this sort of disconnect and battle between werewolves and their species dying out, and between werewolf hunters and humanity. And so what we wanted to draw our attention to is Dawn, who's played by Anastasia Antonia. She's having problems controlling herself, controlling her rage and fear and emotions, and she's developing obviously these super heightened senses, being able, super strength, being able to see and hear things that normally we wouldn't be able to hear and see, and she doesn't understand why. And then she's being chased by people who seem to be just as powerful as her. And the audience is kind of thrown right in the middle of this war and this disconnect between, this pack of alpha werewolves and Dawn, who's trying to escape and figure out who she is and why she's the way she is. And I think what's great about what we're, what we've had the opportunity to do in this film so far, within the franchise so far, is we're able to introduce werewolves as being unique species that have pretty much, died out in certain areas. So we have werewolves, for example, from Africa, werewolves from Asia, werewolves from Spain, and we thought that it'd be really interesting to have those werewolves have characteristics that would represent their territory. So Gecko, for example, would would be more of a werewolf that used and utilized things that would be attributed to where he was from. So, he'd be from Africa, so it's very hot. So he uses things to survive, like he has a resistance to heat. He uses gas and things on that nature. So they have these abilities, that allows them to survive. And seeing as how they're the last of their kind, the last of the werewolf species, and, it becomes very apparent that they're chasing Dawn for a reason. And that reason is slowly unveiling itself through Henry, played by Eric Roberts, who is working in cohorts with the werewolf pack. And we don't know why as an audience member at this point, but it's like, what is, why would he be doing that, and et cetera. And so it's just one of those things. And she runs into Chase, and we develop this chemistry between two characters who are trying to figure each other out and figure themselves out at the same time. And that's kind of where our basis of our story comes from, at its beneath the belly level.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you set off to make like a trilogy right away, is there any party that's like, well, we got to make sure we give enough away in the first one, in case we want people to see it, and so we can make the second and the third one. But at the same time, you want to save some of the story for the second and the third one. So how hard is that to balance that part out?
So difficult. It's weird because Dark Moon Rising, when we initially started it, I thought about all the things that I wanted to show and all the things that we wanted to pay homage to from other great werewolf films that, was its predecessor. But we started thinking, how do we tell people a story that's different and yet allow it to exist in a world that can be understood and sort of keep the elements that we're used to, the moon and transformations, and you understand what I mean? So it's very challenging for us to really come up with ways to give an audience our interpretation of a world that we wanted to build without having history or a comic book or a novel, graphic novel, or some form of following that would allow people to, over the years, develop an affection and affinity towards the character. So we had this sort of challenge of giving information on characters and their backstory, but not revealing too much during the first part, because then everything would become apparent.
Mm-hmm.
So what you'll find in Dark Moon Rising, which is why I said we started right in the middle, is a lot of storytelling and a lot of references to things that have not yet manifested itself. And that's on purpose because, again, to your point, we're trying to ensure that we unfold enough information and backstory for the character development, but we also need to leave room for the story to sort of, materialize in a way that allows the audience to grow along with it. And I think it's very interesting. And it was interesting for Dark Moon Rising when we started out in this film, when we started out the story, to kind of see how that would play with audiences, to see what characters they liked, to see what was underdeveloped, and what parts of the story they, were pretty much needing more clarification on. So it's been a very, very interesting response to the film.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was part, I think it was one of the great challenges of it, because you have to really stretch certain elements that you probably would end earlier, and you have to dive deeper into something that you maybe would have not added in at all had this been a standalone film.
Mm-hmm. Now, I personally, for werewolves, always prefer Werewolf on 2 Feet, bipedal werewolf, and this actually is part of the a little part of the story in the movie. And which do you prefer, a werewolf that is on 2 feet or on all four?
It's odd. I actually, I'm with you a little bit. I think in Dark Moon Rising, we play around with both.
Mm-hmm. And
again, that reveals itself as we go along in the first half. I'll just give a little bit of our rationale there. What we really wanted to say is in the lycanthropy history, there's werewolves, and they're all four, and then there's lycans who walk on two. And so I like the lycan version of the folklore where they're on 2 feet, because it still gives the remnants that there's a man, animalistic
mm-hmm.
nature to, how man can kind of reveal themselves in a way of a monster. And the four legs kind of reminds me of an actual beast,
mm-hmm.
if you understand what I mean. So I think the difference is the one that's more interesting to me as a writer and a creator, it would be the one that allows us to sort of represent or be represented in a way that kind of, can reflect sort of how we see ourselves as ravaging beasts, thoughtless and brainless, unable to control our emotions. And that sort of can be more of a connection to us and our underlying meaning as people. So I kind of like that angle a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say the two-legged lichen approach would definitely be my favorite way of telling a story.
Yeah. Now you mentioned, paying homage to previous werewolf movies. What are some of your favorites?
I love American Werewolf in Paris. I love the Underworld franchise. I love Twilight. I like the original American Werewolf in London. I just, so many of them that's great. Obviously, Wolfman and The Howling. I really can't say I can pinpoint Silver Bullet, which was awesome. I can't even pinpoint a film that I didn't like in the werewolf. It's really hard to find a film I don't like in general, but they're all so great, and they all move the folklore forward in a way that allowed it to be realistic, or to allow you to dream, or to imagine it in such a way that these people could exist amongst us. And it's very difficult to not have seen these films and just thought they were just, something that everyone should have in their collection. It's just amazing. I really love them all. My favorite I love obviously the American Werewolf in Paris and London, and Wolfman and Howling. I think those would be my tops, followed close by Twilight, which in my opinion, again, as I've stated on a few occasions, has produced some of the greatest talent as far as actors and actresses and directors and behind-the-scenes people and writers, that we've seen in a while. And it brought about and I think what people may have missed, or from what I'm gathering, may have missed from the franchise, is it was more than, just being a love story, or more than kind of giving us a big budget Hollywood version of Wolves. What it did was it showed us about diversity, how we, again, relate, because most of the problems that they had within the town was about relatability. It was about judging people. It was about how people were perceived. You had Jacob show up with the long hair. He ran with a pack, and he was, fighting for their land. And then you had, it was so much that was underneath the layer there, underneath the surface, that I think may have got glossed over because of people maybe not really grasping some of those concepts. And I believe that as we revisit Twilight later on, we really see how groundbreaking some of the elements were, and how, forward thinking their casting decisions were, and some of the storytelling elements that they appreciated were.
No, I might be wrong here, but the opening song reminded me of the Lost Boys.
Yeah, what's so great? I love Lost Boys too. As it's obviously vampires and Keith Sutherland.
But still, there's a similarity between there's a group of people together and stuff. But the song, the lyrics in the song reminded me of the score of the Lost Boys.
The music, which was done by Seth Hood, who's phenomenal, and that song in general was done by Nia K. Williams, and the soundtrack's available too. So if anyone interested into seeing those artists, supporting them, that's available on iTunes and Pandora and all over the place. And what we wanted from the opening song was to give us a different narrative. Like we didn't want to start off with a lot of synths and dark, ominous tones. Mm-hmm. We really wanted to kind of say we're going to kick this franchise off in a way that allows us to, get the energy of where we want to take the franchise and how we want it to be. And I think the lyrics, it really reminded me a lot of, of some of those, of the song you're talking about with, it from the Lost Boys soundtrack. It reminded me a lot of that in a way that is slow grunge. And I think that's what we loved about it when we heard it. Mm-hmm. Just the way that it kind of wakes her up.
Yeah.
Into the world. So yeah, I can see where you can draw that connection to.
Now, obviously, you mentioned Eric Roberts, and it's a veteran actor. Has been in so many things. What's that like to have him in your movie? And how do you go about directing someone like that? Do you just let him do his thing, or?
Well, that's a great question. Eric Roberts, he when he comes on set, regardless of how many times you may have heard about what it's like to work with people or what it's like to do a film, and no matter your experience level, I think anytime you have someone as talented as Eric, where it just comes so easy, you almost feel like you need to go back to the drawing board and do more. So I felt like I needed to give him more. Like I felt like when he showed up to set, I always have this. It's an ongoing thing. I tell my cast, I always feel like there's something I'm going to do wrong that he's going to point out, and I have to disagree with it because I wouldn't know how to actually combat it. Mm-hmm. From his perspective, doing the business this long, over 20 plus years, Oscar nominated. I mean, what are you going to say? Well, Eric, I don't agree with that. For example, we'll do a scene, and we have the camera at an angle, maybe underneath to try to show power, to show Henry power in the scene, et cetera. And Eric will say something before we roll. He say, hey, I know we're trying to show power here, but my character at this moment is vulnerable. So can I make a suggestion that we maybe put the camera eye level and allow me to have an eye line that would, sort of implement me speaking directly to the audience. Mm-hmm. And as a director, you have a moment there where you go, did he just tell me how? That's amazing. Because he now just not only gave me a suggestion, but he gave it to me in a way that allowed me to see where he's taking it as a character. He's not like, oh, move the camera because I want to look better. Right. Or this is my best side to the left. This is more of a, okay, I can understand why you would say that. I can go in, and that's sort of like having a director in frame, in camera, on set, also feeding you back information. And it just allows you to move the project forward. And then I think with his skill set and just his overall flavor, he's just a great talent. And I just can't wait to work with him again in the next film and just give him a bigger output, a bigger role. And he's really one of my favorite actors. And I think very underrated as time has gone on. I believe people sort of tend to, similar to David Carradine, they sort of tend to forget his body of work, which speaks for itself in a way that allows us to understand that we're working with a true, legend when it comes to acting. Mm-hmm. And regardless of what we may think about career choices or where they are, you have to respect that. Anyone that's doing something in the business for over 20 years, to have that type of resume, it's not by accident.
Mm-hmm. Would you say, working with somebody like that, based off that story, actually helps you become a better director?
I think so. I think that's part of what it is as we grow as indie artists, or as I grow as an author and actor and director. When I did Dark Moon Rising, it showed me a lot about having big ideas and executing them on a level where we don't have access to, obviously, some of the things that would help us tell that story a lot easier. Mm-hmm. And I think having someone like him come on set, it shows you that there's a level of professionalism, there's a level of intelligence that exists within people who, there's something to wisdom, and I think a lot of times we miss that. I think so many times we're so quick to turn over a project or so quick to kind of get to an end that we miss consulting with people who may give us something that can help us for the future or help us really change how we view things. And I mean, just part of that listening on set as well, and having someone like him to not only show me certain things and aspects into his character and his character work. Now, for example, when he felt that the set prepared the way he is, I expect that from everyone else. I expect that from a new actor or a new actress. I expect that from my lead, and even more. I say if Eric Roberts shows up and he knows the script backwards and forwards, and his character work is how he walks, how he moves, I expect you guys to have that before we even get to set. Like, I want to see what your interpretation is as well. And it just allows me to take, certain tidbits from his character and move that around into every other aspect of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. That's what I wanted to bring up because, I grew up renting VHS when I was younger, and then DVDs at the video store. And a lot of times I always watch horror movies, and a lot of times you'd get a movie based on the cover art. And I think the cover art for the movie looks great. And who did that? And how much input do you have on something like that?
Well, that's great. Encore Entertainment is our distributor, and we work closely with them on most of our films. And I think we kind of come together and say, what are we trying to accomplish in delivering a film, and what audiences we're trying to pretty much target, in the sense of we want tweens, we want teenagers, we want the young. Who are we trying to really approach with our projects? And he allows us input at every stage. So what would happen is, my company, Picture Zero Entertainment, we created an outline, and we say we're looking for this, and we send it over to Uncourt, and then they would develop, a sort of a rebuttal with their team, and then we kind of come to a commonality. So, for example, if I'm thinking, I don't like the title, or I don't like the moon, or maybe we could add a moon, then they allow us that opportunity to voice that. And that's what is great about working with distributors who have an interest in the project and not just an interest in putting something out and, seeing it go because it's time to get it out. They really do take the time to work closely with us to ensure that it fits within our vision and also fits within something that's going to be successful. So what we're trying to approach. So, it's really a joint effort between us and everyone we work with.
Now, you had brought up, early in the interview here about how the movie really starts, right away with like the battle scene and right into the story, and but usually in a horror movie it builds up to to when you get to see the monster, and you show the werewolf basically in the first scene. What was your idea behind that, and did anyone try to tell you, hey, maybe you should wait and show it later, or was that always something like you were really about, was showing it right away at the beginning?
Well, I may get in trouble a little bit, so I'm just going to preface this with I may get in trouble for saying things that I say, but it's always a balance, isn't it? There are movies. We did a movie called The Claw, which is a possession film, and in that film, the first scene is a possession, and it lasts about 4 minutes, and it's done. Danny Trejo's in it, Stephen Brand, done to Uncourt. So I remember screening it for MGM, and some of the execs were like, "Okay, well, we're already seeing the possession scene." Usually what happens in stories is we have a build-up of some kind. Maybe the girl or young guy is going through changes, and we kind of get to go through those changes with him until ultimately at the end of the movie, he's possessed.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some large moment of all the things that happen when someone becomes possessed, and you see the repercussions of it and the aftermath. And then we kind of get to credits. And what I found is as great as that is in storytelling, what we do at my company, Picture Zero Entertainment, we try to say, this is great, and I think every form of art in itself is great. Well, we just try to do something a little different for our style. And every movie that we've done thus far, we pretty much say, we're not trying to build you in that way. We're trying to actually build you from the end and then unravel it as it goes. So that way we can kind of get into an area where the audience has a choice to not know what's going to happen. Because there's one thing I'd say, from most of the comments that we've had so far for Dark Moon Rising, from the Redbox rentals and iTunes and Vudu, the feedback has been, we had no clue what was going to happen, because out of nowhere there's a fantasy world. And again, most of it may seem nonsensical, but it's on purpose and intentional, because our goal is not to, shock and awe. Our goal is to say, we're in a fantasy world that's being created in a way that's allowing us to have an imagination. So within that world, we want to develop certain ways of how we would like to tell a story. And again, it's just a little different, and it's a little, odd when you put the third act into the second act, or you move the denouement earlier, and it kind of, again, it can be disjointing. But hopefully, and especially with the great response we had so far, it's been resonating. We're 6.0 on IMDb right now with 6,000 votes, and so it's such a blessing. It's nothing but God. But we wanted to tell a story that way. We want to kind of show you that we're not going to build up a slow town having issues, and we're wondering what it is in the woods. And then, within an hour and 15 minutes, you finally discover it. It's and there it is. You know, we kind of wanted to say, let's do something where we're going to create characters and get back and pay homage to, you know, great anime, live Japanese animation, Dragon Ball Z, Bleach, Ninja Scrolls, you know, the Akira series, things like this, where the characters really led us to come back. I mean, in Dragon Ball Z, for anyone who's a fan, I mean, we spent 3 months. I was born in '88, so I mean, you know, I kind of got the new version of Dragon Ball Z once they remade it for American audiences. But we spent 3 months watching Goku prepare to fight Frieza. And you spend like 30 minutes of him just talking about what would happen if they actually went over there and fought. You know, they're just standing in the air looking at each other. And it's like, all right. But it was so engaging. And you sit there because you're like, man, when he does go over there, something's going to happen. I know, I know it is. And so just that energy is kind of, you know, it's, again, it could be, if you're not a fan of following that kind of storytelling or understanding it, then you can say, oh, man, he just stood there in the air for 30 minutes. But if you really understood the build-up and kind of saw what they were trying to do, they were really creating this balance because anyone can fight. It was really about why are they, you know, why do they feel the need to fight? Is it about power? Is it about who's the best? Is it about showing, is it about saving the human race, or is it more an ego thing? Is it about, you know, and when they make decisions, should they have made that decision earlier? And that's what it becomes. And I think you allow that by seeing, you know, elements that would normally be saved for later on as some form of a reveal, as more of a, gives us more opportunity. And then also gives us more opportunity to reveal even more things as we go forward. Mm-hmm. Now that we've given you the bigger reveal. So now, you know, when you see a werewolf, it's going to be something else. It's like, oh, now I see, and that would be more powerful. You know, it'd be more impactful to say we've seen something in reference to why we saw it earlier, and now we understand that, you know, they're not in control. That's more impactful than, you know, we don't know what they look like until 90 minutes, and now we have 2 minutes of seeing something reveal itself.
Mm-hmm. I want to ask real quick, too, you mentioned Danny Trejo being in the cloth, and I've been around Danny a lot, and I've done panels with him and stuff, and he's like one of the nicest guys, and what was it like working with Danny Trejo?
Oh, I don't want to sound broken record, but phenomenal. He brought his son to set. An interesting story. He came to the set, and this was my first film where I had any remnants of a budget or even had a camera, I guess, you know, where we could use and utilize. And I was comfortable enough to do it. I mean, before this, I had did a film called Daddy's Home, which was great. I actually got into theaters. But The Cloth was the first time I was able to bring a talent such as him onto set. And I can tell you right now, I've never been so nervous in my life. And I don't know why I was so nervous. I think part of me was going, he's not going to show up. And I know that sounds weird, but I was thinking he's not going to come to set. Or he's going to come to set and go, what is this? You know, where's the trailer and the caveat? I don't understand. Because you have no clue how people have been handled before or what level of you know, sort of their talents may dictate a certain way that they work. Some people need quiet. Some people may want to have their own personal space to develop the time to get into the character. So I had no clue what to expect. First thing he does, he gets out, he comes up like in a hat, jeans, T-shirt, and he has like his friend with him, Mario, and he's just like, hey. I was like, hey, Danny. And he's like, you the director? I said, yes, sir. And he goes, that's cool. You're young. That's cool. I'm going to bring my son to meet you. And he just leaves. And, and it was just like, wow, all right. And I thank you. I just it was just such an open and just it really made me comfortable, you know, and it allowed me to direct. And then when we were in the scene, and we had this great scene at the beginning of the movie. The girl's in the bed. She's going crazy. She's tied up. She had on makeup. She's bleeding all over the sheets and, you know, cursing and explicitives everywhere. And I don't have any markers on the ground. I don't have any blocking for the scene because in my head, I wanted to create a scene where everything was chaotic. And I thought it'd be a bit weird to block it out. Like, you know, you come in stage left and throw a cross holy water, stage right. I thought it would be a little odd. So I said, hey, Dan and Steven, I just want you guys to come in, and when I tell you an action, do that action. And Danny went with it. He was like, all right, cool. So he just comes in. I said, grab her head. He grabbed her head. I said, grab her leg. He grabbed her leg. Now say the words. And he was just all into the character. Whereas Steven, he's more of a traditional actor. He paused during the take. He's like, okay, wait, stop. I don't understand what's going on. We don't have any blocking. I don't know what are we doing. And that's when we had that moment where I was like, okay, I have to handle this like a director, because if I don't show the power here, he's going to look at me like, you don't know what you're doing, and he could leave the set. That was my thought process. But before I could even say anything, Danny turned and said, hey, we're acting. And it just killed the whole conversation. And I was like, exactly. And she was like, I understand. And we went right back to it. And it was one of those moments. I was like, yes.
So how did you get involved in movie making, and like when did you decide this was something you wanted to do?
It's very difficult to say how. I think as a creative person, I think we all grow up wanting to do things creatively, whether it be music, art, playing in the front yard, turning pine cones into grenades, under the sheets in the living room, playing camp and tents and cooking in easy bake ovens. So I think at that age, during this growing up, we kind of, I speak for myself, I developed this sort of affinity to be creative. And I didn't know how to channel that to something that would be, categorized. I had no clue what it was. I just wanted to do creative things. Like, we just played around. I was telling someone a story the other day in an interview how we played Power Rangers during PE. Most kids would be playing kickball or soccer or have the baseball and bats and gloves. Me and 4 friends went to the other field and played Power Rangers. And I know it doesn't sound, like it was a big deal, but we're in 4th and 5th grade. So there's a lot of room for bullying. And we're over there fighting imaginary putties. And there's no one over there. So it's just us fighting nothing and jumping onto the ground in pain and agony. And I would have to come up with the stories. So every day I'd come to the classmates and I'd say, all right, guys, today, we're going to have this kind of story meeting in the bathroom stalls because Zordon's going to send us to the field to face whoever. I just had to come up with a month. And there's this great plot. And I always end up turning on my teammates for some reason, just to make it interesting. I always was evil. And then at the end of the session, I become good again because time was up, so I had to make sure we made up. I had to save me. And that was, kind of the start to how I felt like, man, this is so fun, because I saw the kids that were laughing at us on the other side going, these guys are playing Power Rangers, come on. But then I also saw every now and again they stop playing baseball and they look over at the field almost with that I want to do what they're doing face. Like it was like, I kind of want to go play Power Rangers. It was funny because you could see even at that age, I think I was 10 years old, even at that age, how people really just want to connect with that inner love for entertainment, joy, and just being free. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to bring to acting, and what I wanted to bring to movie making. And so I just decided to pursue it. And I picked up a camera when it wasn't popular. I shot a film called The People's Agency on a Canon HD-20. And at the time, everyone was looking at it like, what is this little camera? I thought it was like back in 05, 06. It's like, what is this small camera? Everyone's using, Panasonics and Canon XL2s and 1s. And so everything had a lot of bulk to it. So here I am with this supposed handheld handy cam, shooting a feature film. And everyone was so confused. It was like, dude, what did you do? It's a home video camera. I was like, no, it shoots 1080p. And they were like, what? And they were so confused by it that they didn't, I had to prove to them that the image quality was good. Mm-hmm. But once I got on board with it, it just allowed me to be creative and make a story. And that was the first time I realized, like, you know what? No matter what your situation, no matter where you come from, your budget, you can always tell a story. Mm-hmm. And that's just a blessing from God to put that energy into people around me, to have cultivated such an essence of just seeing it's in his hands. So whatever I do and however I want to approach it, we have the power, we have the knowledge. It's just about going out and doing it, because nothing's going to be perfect regardless, and no one's going to like everything you do regardless. So it's like art to me. It's subjective. Some people may love the Mona Lisa. Someone else may say, I don't know why you thought that was the most beautiful woman ever. So it's almost irrelevant to not paint the Mona Lisa, because you're afraid of what that may infer. Like, I don't want the vitriol, I don't want the praise. So it was very exciting to me, and I think I always carry that with me in all my work, knowing that deep down, people just want to be entertained, people just want to have fun, people want to think, and they want to be challenged. And as long as we're making films and doing things and acting and hopefully Dark Moon Rising, which comes out October 6th in Walmart, when people go out and pick up a copy, hopefully they can see that energy into that, and as we go forward in the franchise and other projects, sort of grow with us in that regard as well.
Cool. And I know you're also in the movie and you do acting. Do you prefer to do acting or directing? Or like you said, you just like to create?
Great question. I'll give you a straight answer. I love acting more than directing.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I say I love acting more is because I think I have more freedom to sort of take risks. As a director, I have more freedom to allow other people to take more risks, but it still kind of fits within a vision. So, for example, if I had to do a character where he has to be, a savant, and he has to know how to play the piano. As a director, I can have everything outlined. I want him to be smart. I want him to be a savant. I want him to play the piano, and I want him to play it like Mozart played the piano. And I can say what I think I want to see. I can have wardrobe dress the guy. I can have makeup, put the old makeup on him or young makeup. I can do anything I want to do to the character. But what he brings is something I can never foresee. Like, he may come, and I have this interpretation that he's going to be older or he's going to look like he's lost, and he may come and play it like in Amadeus, how, Louis played Mozart, how he played him. In a way, he was a drunkard, but he was very smart, very intelligent, but you can see the destruction beneath the surface. And that may be more interesting to me as a director. So I may strap all of the things I had in mind and say, go with that. I love what you're doing and bringing to the character. Mm-hmm. And now that person has brought a certain level of freedom to an idea that changed the outlook of what I'm doing. And I know it can go both ways a little bit, but as a director, I now have to see how that works with other people. I have to see how that's going to work within the editing process, within the lighting, within story, within the final delivery. So there's a lot that I have to really see where that goes. But as an actor, I'm free to live in this world. So whereas the director may be concerned with how it, translates with the love interest, my concern is just living as this character with the love interest and just, being whoever he is for that amount of time. Mm-hmm. And that escape is almost, it's so freeing that as a director, you're probably always concerned about, everything else that's happening. Mm-hmm. And you're never really truly in that one moment. You're in every moment. You have to have your hands in all the moments. There may be something going on in craft and services you have to attend to. It's like so much going on. So I love. Don't get me wrong. The side of me that wants to control the image and the final results loves to be a director and a producer, but my heart is definitely in being able to create these characters. And so, it kind of goes both ways, because I write as well. So I like to write interesting characters and give people the opportunity as well to just kind of interpret it the way they want.
Mm-hmm. Now, how can people find you and find the movie on social media, like Twitter, Instagram, that kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm. Well, first off, again, before I know we're getting ready to wrap, just thank you so much for this interview and for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I really do appreciate it. And you can find us on Facebook, Picture Zero, which is Pikchure. So it's like picture with a K. Picture Zero. And then my Instagram is Picture Zero as well, or Picor, which is Pikore. My name is Justin Price, so you can find me on Facebook as well. Justin Price 187 is my tag, and Jupiter Rings is my Twitter. So that's Jupiter, the planet, Rings. Things, all one word with an S. And we're there now. I mean, we like I said, we've been tweeted out by Peter Margical from Vanderpump Rules, and next week we're going to be tweeted out, a member of the Empire cast. And we're just very blessed and excited. October 6th, Walmart, Dark Moon Rising.
Definitely. And thank you for coming on. It's been great to talk to you, and I hope continued success.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. You have a blessed day.
You too, man.
My name is Victoria DeMar, and you're listening to Without Your Head.